articulating and socializing vision. So bearing in mind, at least in large organizations, there are a lot of concerns and issues that need to be considered and practices in order to make a transformation successful. It's not shown on the chart, but I do know that because of my own experience that transforming almost anything, let alone DevOps and agile type activities and practices across a large organization is challenging. Many examples of organizations that tried and failed, only to have to restart after spending a lot of money and time and confusing a lot of their people. So this chart really lists some of the good practices that tend to work. Starting on the left, the emphasis begins with a single individual. Typically, that's the case in successful transformations. You can point to some person that was the one that initiated the transformation. And it's often the passion and the knowledge, conviction of that one person that drives the whole transformation as it works through the system. Remember that, I think it's on the quiz. Change needs to happen organically. So in other words, you can't just force change. Typically that doesn't work. You need to let the organization kind of understand it, try it, work with it, and adopt it over time. So it doesn't happen all at once, like switching a knife, switching a knife switch on or something. The champion, which is usually the first individual that started it, will need co-leaders. Certainly in large organizations, you can't do it all alone, but you're going to need some people to help you with it, whether they're more senior leaders or peers or influential people, but usually they're going to be influential leaders in their own right, technically or people-wise or otherwise. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen pretty quickly. So the change, even though it may need to happen organically, will, generally speaking, if it's a successful change, it's likely to catch on quickly. It's likely to resonate pretty well with all the different teams. Like, yeah, we should start doing this, and it'll start to happen quickly. If it doesn't do that, then probably it's going to peter out and not really happen well or take too long, and other things will get in front of it and so on. The change itself, is likely to evolve. Don't be surprised if, as you go through the change, some new ideas come along to help that modify it a little bit. But overall, if the core change idea is important, like adopting DevOps, then it will likely continue through to some level of completion of transformation, but it also may evolve a little bit as you go. The change process will run on human passion. Again, that's kind of related to the champion idea. Yet it should be focused, and the champion needs to help keep everything focused, even though there's some excitement. Make sure people are excited about the right thing at any point in the transformation. You may very well need outside help. Maybe bring in some expert or some other people that have experienced the kind of change to help you influence and help demonstrate different ideas that worked for them, and you can adopt them for your own organization. Usually the top of the organization is going to be certainly no more than just aware of the transformation. A senior leader will probably help sponsor it, support it, and yet you need to support that senior leader as well, because even at the very top of the house, there's a lot of stuff going on. If you want a transformation to complete, it's going to require support at all levels. And generally speaking, if it's a successful transformation, if the idea needs to be seen as an important point more than other activities in the organization, it must be seen as more important than any individual activity, something that the whole organization realizes they need to evolve to. So those are just some practices and characteristics of what makes a good transformation. If you're in the middle of a DevOps transformation and you see this not happening, then those are kind of alarms. You might want to stop and address some of these issues. So certainly, don't try to do it all in a big bang. I said that really in the last chart as well. Instead, incremental. You might have a lot of upfront planning, but don't dwell on it too much, because you're going to find that things will need to improve as you go along. You may need to make changes. Try to avoid just pure disruption. Instead, introduce change at a steady rate, so it just keeps the momentum going, but it's not too disruptive. You have to recognize that the organization is doing a lot of other things that they need to do while this is going on. So if it's too disruptive, it may be, it may cause the whole thing to be stopped in favor of other existing activities. It should be orchestrated from as high as possible. And at the same time, you can't necessarily get every, an executive at every meeting and every activity. So decentralized decision making is important. Try to enlist, supporting people that can help make decisions. A single individual driving it often fails. In other words, you want to get participants, empowering people involved. Expense and time it can be expensive and time consuming, so you need to have at least authority to to get what you need, and that should be a delegated authority and distributed, so that you don't have one person bottlenecking the whole transformation. It can cause inertia, a transformation, so you really want to make sure that people are looking at the overall system improvements and not get bogged down in some particular, when you make an improvement, you may have 2 steps forward and 1 back sometimes, but you want to keep making those steps forward. And that's going to require that you show transparently how progress is going and show that it's in the positive direction, build trust. This little box is kind of an alert, if you like. Be aware of this type of thing. And, if you have a dysfunctional team, if you can see that it's dysfunctional, if it's unable to make decisions, it doesn't really have accountability, it has poor morale, makes slow progress, and constantly reprioritizes activities. So this little guide here really is a way to think about analyzing any one of your teams and saying, maybe this needs a transformation, or if it's going through a transformation, maybe it's not performing very well. So be aware of these little alerts. Okay, so how do you get everybody thinking about DevOps across the whole organization? Again, they try not to do it as a big bang. Try to work in, just like the DevOps process itself, working the change in small batches in an incremental manner, if you like. These are just some ideas, use cases, if you like, for incremental change across different parts of an organization. So HR reviews, you could ask, are reviews happening on an annual basis or more frequently? How are bonuses paid? Is it, how is talent attracted? How are people onboarded? Is it, are you using net uh, performance scores? In other words, surveying people and getting scores. So that's some of the activities that HR might be doing that could be evolved into more batch size work, rather than having, very chunky type work, annual only, and so on. DevOps does better when you break things down into small batches, and it's true for all the organization. How about finance? Are our budgets only agreed annually? Our teams or products, our teams and products or projects funded? In other words, you have to go back for funding for every project, or is it more like you're trusted as a team to decide what to do, and you have a budget at the product level, which is better? How are experiments viewed by finance? If you have a failed experiment, are they going to kill your funding, or are they going to understand that, experiments need to happen? Some of them aren't always going to be successful, but you should keep funding it as a product. How is value measured by finance? Is time to value a metric that is used? So there's pros and cons with these different metrics. Generally speaking, you want to measure the overall outcomes of a product rather than the individual performance of an individual project. That's more likely to be valuable at the big picture level. The sales organizations, how often are the sales targets set and rewarded? How is customer feedback attained? Is customer value the key performance metric? Do they understand lead time? So again, you need to educate the sales team on the DevOps way of things and help them understand that, the changes are going to happen over time, incrementally, and you should be rewarding the sales teams accordingly, not expecting them to deliver some major release every time to get a reward, for example. Instead, you want to measure customer satisfaction and things that relate to customer value. The governance and regulatory compliance teams, people that are involved in that. How and when are risks calculated? How do the teams know what risks they are permitted to take? Are they involved, and do conversations happen on a daily basis? So those are some good questions. What you don't want in a DevOps organization is, you certainly still want GRC, of course, but you want them to be flexible and understand that there really should be, governing value, and that value in a DevOps world is happening incrementally. Business operations. So are they project driven? Do they write value into their requirements? Do they dedicate purchase orders to the technology teams? Are the backlogs visible? So to some extent, it's similar to like the other comments, right? You want to reorient the business operations people, leaders, to think about product more than just individual projects, and allow teams to make their decisions accordingly. Security, the security teams, is the SecOps team working continuously with DevOps teams to prioritize DevSecOps? There are a lot of questions under security, but certainly, again, think about security happening incrementally as you go through a DevOps pipeline, all the different checks and so on. Make sure the SecOps teams are participating and setting those standards, and make sure that they're satisfied that that you're working your security concerns in the DevOps pipelines in accordance with the most important security risks and threats of the day for that particular pipeline. If they're just looking at it as a big, product level, it's not as helpful as if they're working more closely with the DevOps teams on individual, changes.